We're going
Right.
to do it now. Perfect. So,
Um, Hi, and a very, very warm welcome to everyone that's joined us today. We're really excited to be here with you for these free lifestyle webinars. And today is Supercharge Your Metabolism. We're here to support you on your weight loss journeys and for you to try and help you achieve long-term sustained weight loss. So each of the webinars we do covers a very important but sometimes overlooked aspect that's essential to work on to support your long-term weight loss. So you are very welcome to come along as often as these are helpful for you. And if you've joined us before, then a very warm welcome back. And if you haven't, it's the first time, then we really hope that you find these webinars and the information we share of great value. So, just for introductions, my name is Dr. Sarah Baker. I'm a GP for Boots Online Doctor. I've got a background in physiotherapy and a specialist interest and a real passion for lifestyle medicine. And I'm joined today by my colleague Ruth.
hi everyone. Hi, really nice to have you here with us today, Sarah. I am Ruth Taylor. I'm a nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor, also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. And it's exactly what Sarah is saying. You come as often as is helpful to you. Some of the subjects that we talk about are often really missed and overlooked in this whole story of weight management and weight loss. And we really want to support you on your journeys to better health and to long-term sustained weight loss. This is why we do these webinars. We are, absolutely committed to making this your long-term success story. We're joined today by Adna, who's here in the background, sharing any links that are helpful for you to have and just making sure everything's working for us. So do say hi. I'm based in slightly cloudy Hampshire, but it is, beautiful. It was sunny earlier, which was really great to see. So do let us know where you are. If you have brought any questions along with you, please pop them into the Q&A box. For clarity, if you have any very personal um, questions that you need some support and advice with. If it's not generic information, we will direct you back to your GP or your weight loss medication provider if it is related to weight loss medications. This is not a webinar specifically for people on weight loss medications. The information that we're sharing is appropriate for all people who are on weight loss journeys, regardless of whether you are or aren't on a weight loss medication. So let's get started because I know there's a lot to cover today. Um, we are going to start today by asking you some questions. We thought it'd be interesting to start with a poll straight away. So I'm going to launch the first poll. Just for anyone who's not been here with us before, the polls are completely anonymous. We can see that people are answering. We can't see who is answering. So do have a little look at the poll. There's no trick questions. And we just want to know where you're at, what you know already, what we can layer in terms of your understanding, and really how we can support you today in terms of understanding this whole story around metabolism, which is what we're going to be talking about. So let's see. I can see we've got some great answers here that there are, people know what's happening. Some people are a little bit more confused. It's really helpful for us to know where you're at because we can help you hopefully on your understanding today. So take a few seconds to have a look. There's a few of you here, so we'll give you a couple of minutes to take part. We may as well capture as many ideas as possible from the group that are here. And if you do have any questions, pop them into the Q&A box. Say hello in the chat box. Tell us where you are in the world. We love to hear from you, don't we, Sarah? Keeps us happy.
Thank you. There's someone from Anglesey. We've got a wet and windy Lincolnshire. Yeah, we love seeing all your messages and someone in Croydon as well. So hi to all of you.
Oh, hi, brilliant. Thank you. It's really good to have you join us and thank you for giving up your precious time. Hopefully, you'll go away with something that is helpful for you today. So let's have a look so far. Where are we at? Yep, so there's a lot of knowledge in the room. So hopefully, we'll add to the knowledge that you already have. There's a little bit of confusion, but we can see that you are. Great. Okay, choice two. I could not get rid of choice two in the final question. It would not let me delete it, but I would like to know what your choice two answers are because that is very funny. Okay, Alrighty, let's have a look. So around 75% of you have taken part. So let's not carry on. Let's end this poll now and we'll quickly share your results. So, Sarah, can you see those as well?
I can, and I think it's actually really interesting to see the spread. If we look at question one, when we're talking about weight loss and how we think weight loss affects the metabolism, there does seem to be a little bit of confusion.
And we'll
Um,
clear all of these answers up as we go through. I think we won't spend too
Indeed.
much time. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think like you said, Ruth, it's interesting. There seems to be a lot of knowledge in the room, but hopefully, any kind of myths we can kind of clear up a bit, and any uncertainty we can make things a bit clearer for you.
brilliant. That's great. Okay, so have we stopped sharing? Let's see. We can in a minute. There we go. Let's stop sharing. There we go. Then we can share some more polls with you. Thanks for taking part. Really helps us to know where you're at. So do tell us if there's anything you'd like to know, and let's get on. Today we're all talking about metabolism today, and this is such an important aspect for everyone to be tuning into and thinking about in terms of just their general health, their health while they're on a weight loss journey, and really, what is metabolism? So, metabolism can be affected by a lot of different factors. Some of those are in our control, others are completely outside of our control. So, that's quite interesting as a starting point. Our metabolism is how our body converts the foods that we eat into energy. And it really is about how our bodies, the number of calories our body needs just to function at rest. So that is how we calculate our basal metabolic rate. When if we want to be looking at what our calorific needs are, then we need to add in the sort of complexity of how much movement we do and what our body composition is like can have quite an enormous impact. So things that we can't actually affect are things like our gender, our genetics, and our age. Also, hormones can have quite a large impact, can't they, Sarah, on our metabolism and also our body temperature. For some reason, I'm absolutely freezing cold. So I'm sure my metabolism must be working quite hard for me right now because I've got to do a little bit more work to keep warm. So I'll be using a few more calories. But also for women, the menstrual cycle can have quite a profound impact. All of these factors contribute to our baseline resting metabolism. So our resting metabolism accounts for around 70% of our total metabolic rate. This is our calories that we use at rest to support things like our blood flowing through our bodies, our organ function, our basic brain activity, keeping sort of our body temperature. The remaining of our metabolic rate, so around 25%, comes from two factors: the energy that we create from the food that we eat, so that's the thermic effect of food, and also how physically active we are, so the amount of energy that we use during the day in terms of being active. In fact, there are many factors that will adversely affect our metabolism, so we're going to go into those a little bit more detail. But if you're struggling to lose weight and to keep it off, it may be something to do with maybe looking to change your metabolism, because having a low metabolism can really slow down the rate of weight loss. But the great news is you can change all of this. And this is why this is such an important area for us to be talking about. We want to get rid of all of the myths. We want to get rid of any confusion. We want to really help you. So stay tuned. So, Sarah, do you want to take this slide or would you like me to?
You go ahead, that's fine.
Okay. So the effect of rapid weight loss, this is really important, and the effect of repeat weight loss. We know that all weight loss can affect our metabolic rate, and we know that our bodies work quite hard to maintain our sort of body weight. So one of the things it tries to do is it tries to maintain what it sees as our standard weight. We know that muscle, so if we have good levels of body muscle, our body muscle will burn calories faster than our fat mass will. So this is a really important factor. If we lose muscle while we're losing weight, our metabolism will reduce further than it necessarily needs to. So one of the things that we're really keen for you to do is to do all of the things necessary to preserve your muscle mass. We also know, and this applies to many, many people, so there's no criticism at all intended. This is all about you getting new power. Power and knowledge go hand in hand, and this is really important. So we know that people who have lost weight previously, regained it, and gone through that pattern of losing and regaining weight, there is very likely to have been a reduction in your metabolism. We know that that pattern of losing weight and regaining it can lead to an overall increased amount of body fat. So we know this is an important aspect for many people to really think about in terms of what you do to really improve your body composition, because that can really make a difference to your metabolism. So it is really important. So your resting heart rate. Your resting heart rate can give you clues as to your fitness and to your sort of overall metabolism. The good way to check your resting heart rate is first thing in the morning. Before you get out of bed, you can find your pulse just in your wrist, putting two fingers gently on and count your pulse. We recommend counting for a full minute so that you capture that whole picture. Take this over a period of time to sort of recognize the changes. That can give you some indication of how hard your heart is having to work to pump the blood around your body. And that can give us some indication of how metabolically active you are. You can also do a basal metabolic rate calculation. So, Adna, if you don't mind sharing a link to the British Heart Foundation site where you can do your basal metabolic rate. It also has a small area underneath the link where you then add in your level of activity. So you have to take your basal metabolic rate and you have to multiply it by the factor that represents how active you are. So that is a really important element. Body temperature can also affect our basal metabolic rate. Our body composition, so if we have greater lean muscle mass, then we will be more metabolically active. If we have higher fat mass, we'll be less metabolically active. Why it matters. So you need to be thinking about your energy and how your symptoms are. All of these things are making a difference to your metabolism. So we want to be thinking about this. And we also want to be thinking about your waist circumference, because we know that if we're carrying more weight around our middle, that is much more likely to indicate that we have a higher fat mass. So we want to be thinking about that. We know that that is an area that is really worth putting some effort into considering as we're on these weight loss journeys. So, Sarah, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Ruth. So we wanted to talk through the factors that reduce your metabolism. Again, some of these are things that are within your control, some of them are outside of your control. Now, as we age, naturally, muscle tends to decrease. That's a process called sarcopenia, and that can slow down our metabolic rate. Unfortunately, that's something that we can't control unless we really work to build and maintain our muscle mass. So with this muscle loss, we have fewer calories that are going to be burnt at rest because, as Ruth mentioned, muscle is far more metabolically active than fat. We've also touched on hormonal imbalances. Now, again, this is sometimes outside of our control, but they also affect our metabolism. There's conditions such as insulin resistance, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and adrenal dysfunction that can all slow down our metabolism. And sometimes if we have these constantly high cortisol levels, that can also impact on our metabolism due to this sort of insulin resistance as well. So sometimes these things can actually be improved by diet and exercise, such as insulin resistance. Some of those things are slightly outside of our control. Many people, well, actually, we touched on this in the poll. We asked whether you felt that restricting calorie intake or would affect weight loss. But I think lots of people, when they're trying to lose weight, will undereat and they'll restrict their calorie intake. And that's their way of trying to reduce their body weight. Now, unfortunately, if you have a prolonged restrictive diet or you're sort of restricting your calorie intake for too long, then it puts your body into starvation mode. And that reduces the metabolic rate of the body because your body is trying to conserve energy. So it's trying to be clever, but unfortunately, it's working a little bit against us in that sense. Other factors that are really important to consider are staying very well hydrated. Hydration is really, really important for weight loss. Water is absolutely vital for the metabolic process. So even if you have some mild dehydration, this can actually slow down our metabolisms. We need to think carefully about how we're eating and what we're eating when we're wanting to lose weight, because nutrient deficiencies, so some of the key vitamins and minerals, such as iodine, iron, magnesium, and our B vitamins, if we're not getting enough of those, then that's going to impair our metabolic function. Also, when we're thinking about our macronutrients, so that's our proteins, our fats, and our carbohydrates, we need to make sure that we're prioritizing our protein intake. Protein has a higher thermic effect of food. Compared to the fats and the carbohydrates. And what that means is that it helps to increase our metabolism more than those other macronutrients, so more than fats and more than carbohydrates. So it's really important that we're thinking about having a good intake of protein to help our metabolism be as effective as possible when we're trying to lose weight. We've got on here our gut microbiome as well. It's really important to have a balanced diet with plenty of whole foods. That really helps to feed our gut microbiome. The gut extracts energy from different foods, and that therefore influences our metabolic health. And the way that the food is extracted also affects inflammation in the body and our insulin sensitivity. So really important to think about our whole foods and sort of balanced diet there. Other things that can reduce your metabolism are not having good enough sleep quality. And we do a whole webinar on this. So I'd really urge you to tune into that. But not getting enough sleep can actually slow down your metabolism, as can alcohol consumption. So another important thing to think about. Right.
Very, very much so. I agree with all of those points, and I really do think it's time we wrote a whole webinar all around gut microbiome and weight loss. So I think I'm going to put that as an urgent priority on my to-do list. Just because the more I read about it, the more I know how influential it is. And I was reading about the production of GLP-1 being an important component of what the gut is doing as well. So that is really interesting. I find it fascinating. And the other nutrient I think that we forgot to mention here is vitamin D. I was reading some really interesting research about vitamin D the other day and how that has quite a fundamental role in weight management. So again, it is worth, if you haven't had your vitamin D checked and for any reason you are potentially insufficient in vitamin D, which applies to a huge amount of the country, unfortunately, it is really worth seeing if your GP will check your vitamin D levels, just because I think that is a massive missing link for some people as well. Would you agree with that, Sarah? Although I don't think the GPs will be happy with us saying go and get your vitamin D checked.
I mean, I think it's particularly noteworthy over the winter months because we're not getting as much sunlight. Well, the majority of us aren't. So, yes, it's important to either supplement or, if you feel you might be low, to try and get those levels checked.
Yeah, and I've been looking through your comments, so we will pick up on some of those in our Q&A because I can see there's some really important comments that you've made in the chat box. Somebody's just asked about what sort of exercise to do, which is a perfect question because we're now going to move on and look at the type of exercise. So Sarah, do you want to run us through this? I think this is your speciality, isn't it?
Yeah, so activity is really, really good at boosting the metabolism, and for certainly, maintaining weight loss, if not helping to lose weight as well. There's lots and lots of benefits to regular activity, and we know the main reason most of you are here is to help control and lose weight, but it has got a whole range of other benefits too. So exercise helps with weight loss by increasing your metabolism. So as we mentioned, different muscles require different amounts of energy. And muscle tissue is very metabolically active, so uses a lot of energy compared to fat tissue. And when you start exercising, your body is going to start to build more muscle. And we can talk about which are the best activities to build muscle a little bit later. But this means that along with getting fitter and stronger because you've got more muscle, you're also going to be burning more energy even when you're not exercising because you've got that increased muscle bulk in your body. And that's how it can help to sustain your weight loss. Lots of people, when they begin to exercise, and notice this initial boost to their weight loss, but that often does stabilize. So don't be disheartened by that. But the muscle that you've gained through that new exercise is really going to help with your weight management, weight loss to start with, but weight management overall. And like I said before, there's so many other benefits to exercise. You've got benefits to your heart, you've got benefits to your brain. You produce many more of the happy chemicals in the body, the neurotransmitters, which help with mood and help to reduce anxiety. Those are your dopamine and your endorphins. And like I said, so many benefits to the rest of your body, your lung function, your cardiovascular function, helping to reduce sort of longer term chronic conditions like diabetes. And again, we're not focusing on sleep today, but doing regular exercise can also really, really help improve your sleep quality. So important for that. Lots of people are sort of curious to know what counts as activity or exercise. And that's absolutely anything that gets your heart rate up, that makes you a little bit out of breath or sweaty. So it can include things like walking, cleaning the house, gardening, dancing, swimming, running around with your kids, taking the dog for a walk, anything. The possibilities are absolutely endless. So I would say the main thing to do is to find an activity that suits you, that suits your lifestyle, and that's enjoyable for you. And an added benefit would probably be if you can do it with friends, because then you'll probably want to commit to doing it a little bit more. I mentioned about sort of activities or exercise that helps to sort of build muscle. And the best thing for that is resistance exercise. So it helps to build muscle and it can also help to improve the muscle strength that you've already got. And resistance exercise is doing anything against a force or a weight. So for some examples might be using one of those resistance bands, or using free weights like kettlebells, dumbbells, or even getting a big bottle of water and filling that, and then you can use that to do your own kind of free exercises. Doing squats would count as resistance exercise, or using specific kind of gym machines like the resistance machines or the cross trainers. It's important to think about those people that are a bit less mobile as well. And you can do plenty of resistance exercises at rest as well as on the move. So you could do biceps curls or just passive limb exercises like extending your leg in a chair. But in every single form, getting more movement into your daily life is going to have a huge impact. So I'd really, really urge you to do it and see where you can just fit extra little bits in. I'd say just keep it simple, keep it easy, and make it fun. And then you're going to really enjoy it and you'll see the benefits.
Yeah, I think the fun element is absolutely crucial, isn't it? Otherwise, if you're not having fun, and I noticed that somebody said that they really struggle to want to be in the gym or getting active, and their activities are more sedentary, the things that they enjoy are more sedentary. I think it's sort of like you just have to find one thing that you enjoy. It could be dancing, it could be, just even just knowing that you're doing yourself good can actually make something feel much more meaningful and something that you would enjoy as well. So we know, why is this resistance exercise so important? Well, we know that this is the key type of exercise that's really going to help in terms of building your muscle mass. So that's really important. And we know that if we don't focus on our muscle mass while we're losing weight, we will probably end up losing weight a little bit more less healthily. So we'll lose muscle mass as well as fat mass. And what we want to focus on is the loss of that fat mass. So one of the things that we can do by doing these sort of resistance exercise is maintain that muscle mass. If you lose weight without putting in the exercise, then the risk is you will lose muscle mass too. It will make it much, much harder further down the road to maintain your weight loss because your body will be less metabolically active. Now, one of the things that happens as we lose weight is our caloric needs will reduce anyway because we weigh less. So we will have less wriggle room to play with in terms of the calories that we can eat to maintain our weight. If we then add a layer of complexity by reducing our muscle mass, we have even less calories to play with. So it's really important actually building the muscle during this whole process will mean that you can eat really healthy amounts of calories and that you can enjoy your food without the risk of weight regain. And this is a really key component. And it could be that if you change your whole body fat percentage over the process of losing weight, you could end up being in a more metabolically healthy condition. Well, that would be that aim really is that you are more metabolically healthy at the end of this journey than you were at the start. And that could mean that your calorie requirements won't have shifted enormously over this process, really depending on where you started, where you want to get to, and what your calorie requirements were and are now. But it's really worth thinking about, isn't it? It's sort of like such a crucial step. I think we are labouring it a lot, but I think we are labouring it a lot because we know that this is crucial.
I agree, absolutely. I think it's also important to touch on how much activity. But I would like to say that this is about you as individuals. So it's not a race, it's not a competition. There is guidance as to how much exercise a fit, healthy person should be doing, and we'll touch on that. But really think about starting where you are, make a plan, and try and build up slowly. And if you need to, set reminders for yourself just to kind of get that commitment and that accountability. So what the government recommends is to do 150 minutes of moderate exercise over the course of a week. And it really doesn't matter how you fit it in. It can be 10-minute chunks if that works for you. It can be 25 to 30 minutes at a time. It can be more. It's just how you can build that into your daily life and your daily patterns. Um, you could do 75 minutes of very intense activity if that works for you better. But again, just take it back to where you are now. Some of you may not have done any activity really, sort of over the last few years. So just start where you are and build up slowly. Set realistic goals. I think that's the other important thing. And if you set sort of an overly ambitious goal and you don't manage to achieve it straight away, that can be quite disheartening. Whereas if you set just small bite-sized sort of goals, then when you achieve them, it's going to make you feel really, really good about yourself and it's going to motivate you to want to do more. So realistic goals, and please pick something you enjoy. It's also really important when you have hit the goals, when you have committed to doing exercise regularly, that you celebrate your success. It's so fantastic when you actually manage to set out and achieve what you've planned to do. So do celebrate. Get your family involved, get your friends involved. That's all going to make it so much more pleasurable for you. So yeah, think about maybe someone else that you could ask to take part and to do an activity challenge with you, or just to be active with you regularly. Try and make it fun. Maybe walk with a friend, connect with someone that you know enjoys doing something that might be nice to spend more time with. That can be really, really helpful. I think the other thing that certainly motivates me when I'm thinking about, I like running, so going out for a run would be to either put a podcast in and just have some of my own time to listen to that podcast, or some music, and it can really help you kind of zone out of what you're doing too. So that might help.
Yeah, it's good distraction, isn't it? So I think that's a really good point. We thought it would be really helpful to end on thinking about what you can do additionally to exercise to really support this whole metabolism, because obviously it's more than just exercise. So we talk about protein such a lot in our webinars, and it is, actually a fundamental element of every aspect of losing weight. It helps you to stay fuller, it helps with repair. It also, as it happens, helps to support a healthy metabolism. We recommend a minimum of zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. That could go up to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. So if you're struggling with hunger or cravings, nudge it up, see how it goes. Don't forget that what you see on your plate isn't necessarily going to be all protein. So something like a couple of eggs have got something like 14 grams of protein in total. A chicken breast is something like 25 grams for the 100 grams that you have on your plate. So it is really worth just making sure you understand how much protein you are getting from your various foods, because it can be quite challenging to get to that sort of level that you need to maintain a healthy body composition. So really, really put some effort into thinking about that. Interestingly, the research for menopausal women is that perhaps you need even to be thinking it definitely around that 1 gram per kilogram, but maybe even going slightly above that as well, because that's a really challenging time in terms of metabolism and hormone balance. So obviously it goes without saying, but our sex hormones also affect our insulin supply and demand. So really important to be thinking about this for that cohort of people. We do have a whole webinar on weight loss around that perimenopause, menopausal phase. So if that applies to you, come along to that. We'll be running that in March. We also know that excess protein is not healthy. So this is why it's really worth putting a little bit of attention in, just checking out where you're at in terms of the protein that you're eating. And if you aren't currently eating very much, it can be really hard to build up to that larger amount. So just do it in stages. You know, if you're only having protein perhaps once a day, get it in on the second meal, then build it in on your third meal. Other foods that can be helpful, say some really interesting research around goji berries, not something that are sort of really regularly eaten. They're a very different berry to the standard berries available in the shops. But the research suggests that 14 grams a day can help to reduce abdominal fat. Chilies contain an active ingredient that increases some element of sort of subtly increases insulin sensitivity. So that may also help with weight loss. And ginger, similarly. So it is that sort of spicy element of those foods that can really has been found to have some sort of insulin sensitivity improvement. Green tea. The research is mixed in terms of whether green tea really can help with weight loss, and it might be because it's a much more personalized effect. So if you had 100 people in the room, some people would respond positively, others would have no response at all, and others, you know, it would just be what it is. However, we know that green tea is really healthy, so it is something we would recommend that you drink anyway. It's got this active ingredient called epigallocatechin gallate, which is really anti-inflammatory. And we know from many, many research studies how important including green tea is. It's taken me a long time to get to the point where I really enjoy green tea, many years, to be honest, to find the green tea that works for me, but I love it now. So you can change your taste buds. And I really challenge you to see if you can bring some green tea in. Staying hydrated is absolutely vital. We do talk about hydration and what counts. Clear fluids are your thing. Water is number one. You really want to be thinking about really being adequately hydrated, and a little bit like everything else, don't go from zero to hero overnight, but really make sure that your urine is nice and really pale straw color. You want it to be really clear. The only person this doesn't apply to is anyone who's on a fluid restriction for any health reasons. So, you know, and again, if you aren't drinking very much water, build it in slowly, but you do want to be really getting in. There's some really interesting research that's found that drinking 1.5 liters of water, 500 mils with each of 3 meals per day really has an opportunity to support weight loss. So that's a really key thing to be thinking about. Coffee, interestingly, some studies have found that for some people, again, this isn't generic. We're all a little bit different. Some people don't do well on coffee, others do. For some people, coffee can be a thing that promotes weight loss. But obviously, for some people, caffeine really affects sleep. So this is sort of like finding out who you are, how your body works, and working with how your body works for you is really important. And then things like avocados may help to promote weight loss. They're very high in calories, so don't be put off by that. They are potentially our friends in this situation. And again, they're full of healthy fats, so very anti-inflammatory. So the key takeaway here, I think, is consistency is really important. You know, really keeping that focus on how to eat, perhaps following the core meal plan, would be a really great step forward. And Adna, if you're able to share the link to the core meal plan, that would be fantastic. We also have a podcast all around metabolism. We also have podcasts on sleep. And also we talked a little bit earlier, didn't we, Sarah, about alcohol and the effect that that can have on metabolism. And we've got some nice little podcast segues all around those things that would be worth tuning into. So that brings us nicely to the end of our slides. We will come over to your questions. Just to let you know, the next couple of webinars, there's one next week on the psychology of weight loss and the importance of how we think, being really crucial in terms of successful weight loss. We're taking a break on the week of the 17th February, and then we'll be back on the 24th, looking all around how to control cravings and the sort of subject of self-sabotage, because we know that is a key issue for many people on these long-term weight loss journeys. So do sign up and join us for those. Adna, if you can share the link, that would be great. And we are going to move over to your questions. And I can see there's a lot of comments, but also questions.
Should we work through the questions first and then maybe go to...
Yeah, let's do that. Good plan, Sarah.
Lovely. So let's start. So there's someone that's in their 5th week of their weight loss journey and suddenly plateaued. They're taking a weight loss medication. They've been very much enjoying food and eating, but with smaller quantities. That's fantastic. Yeah, this week they haven't found they've lost anything. Is that normal? So first of all, I'd say it's brilliant that you're still eating and that you're reducing your quantities. I presume that's sort of a well-balanced, healthy diet. So that's fantastic. You will often notice that even when you're taking weight loss medication, you do go through these periods where you lose some weight, then you plateau and you lose a little bit more weight. That's actually a really good thing because your body is adjusting to that new weight. And that can go on for some time. It can be weeks. For some people, it can be even a little bit longer than that. So don't be disheartened. Just keep going with all the positive things you're doing. So keep going with the eating a healthy diet, eating smaller portions, think about sleep, think about stress, think about movement. But yes, plateauing is a very normal part of the process. So don't be disheartened by it.
Very much so. Yeah, it is unfortunately part of the process. So just stick with it, consistency, and also I think worth just focusing on other parameters of feeling good. So are you waking up with energy? What are the things that you can measure that aren't just weight loss? Because sometimes that weight loss can really trip us up in terms of, if we don't see a change on the scales, sometimes measuring your waist or measuring the tops of your thighs, you can see a difference there that can keep that motivation going, because it can be a little bit demotivational, can't it, when things don't go quite how we want them to. There's a question here from somebody who is perimenopausal, which is interesting. I'm finding it really hard to lose weight. How can I get things moving again? So I would say the key thing here is to follow something like that core meal plan. You want to be working on hormonal balance and insulin sensitivity as much as you can. Do come along to the weight loss webinar, which is going to be all around managing your weight during menopause and perimenopause. We will share a lot more information there, and keep that protein going, be consistent. It's really important. Sarah, anything else that you want to add as a key element?
I think it's just that same messaging, just really focus on staying active, healthy diet, making sure you've got a good amount of protein intake, sleep, stress, all of those factors, and staying hydrated.
Great.
Next question. So, sorry, go for it.
No, somebody is asking, where is your waist? Now, Sarah and I did a hilarious video on this.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking about.
A couple of years ago, but I think it was so hilarious it didn't get published, probably. So sorry about that. But what you need to do is you need to crease over to the side, and you need to sort of like mark where that crease is with your fingers. And that is where your waist is. For men, I know we have a few men on the webinar. It is not where your trousers sit. It is generally a lot higher than that. And it is worth just doing this first thing in the morning before you get dressed, because you need to just have that sort of like body that is not being squashed into clothes or constricted by anything. So yeah, you want to crease over to one side, crease over to the other side, and then you put the measurement around and measure. Then you would take an inhale, and on your exhale, you would do the measurement. That's correct, isn't it, Sarah?
Yes, it does tend to sit a little bit above the belly button. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's generally the kind of thinnest part of your waist.
brilliant.
So
So
we
yeah,
Yeah,
go.
we very much talked about this one. The next question is, does drinking water help to lose weight? Yes, is the answer to that. You need to stay adequately hydrated, sort of to get that metabolism going. So yes.
Yeah. Yes, and just use your urine as a barometer. We can have you can pinch your skin and see if it goes back into shape easily. If it doesn't, that could be a sign of dehydration. But also using your urine, you want it to be a sort of really, I'm looking around me for inspiration or something I can show you, but I haven't got anything here. Sort of like that pale, clear straw color is really important. That's what you're aiming for. And actually, when you wake up in the morning, what colour is your urine then? If it's really dark yellow, that's a real indication that perhaps you're quite dehydrated. I know we dehydrate a little bit more overnight, but as our bodies become more hydrated, you will notice your morning urine will become clearer and paler. So I used to be a really bad water drinker. I have to confess, it's probably how I know so well, and as a nurse, obviously. But yeah, it is interesting how it changes.
I think having a bottle on your desk at all times is probably a good thing because then it just gives you
Yeah,
that.
it's about the only way. It's a reminder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
A nice endorsement about the webinar on gut microbiome. Thank you for whoever said it was a great idea.
Okay, Sarah, one for you. On the basis that muscle is more metabolically active than fat in terms of exercise, would we focus on weightlifting types of exercise? Good question. Thank
I
you.
would say that, yeah, that resistance exercise is really, really important for weight loss and sort of maintaining that muscle mass to keep that weight off. That being said, I would say it's important actually to get kind of a mix of both. For your overall health, having some aerobic exercise is also really good. The cardiovascular exercise that's good for your heart, for your lungs, and also very good for your brain. But yeah, if we're focusing on kind of building muscle, then doing the resistance training like weightlifting would be sort of probably where to focus.
Yeah, and also just thinking about using your body weight to support that exercise and that resistance. So anything that you're using your body weight, so the resistance, press ups against the wall if you can't get
What?
down on the floor, all
Anything
of
like
those squats. And one thing that, you can buy these weighted vests as well, and you can walk with those.
No, and someone's
Um,
actually mentioned that in the chat box, Ruth.
oh, really? Oh,
Like
well, there you
breakfast
go.
in the morning, yeah, they wear the weighted vest. So
Yeah,
I bet
brilliant.
like you said that's a fantastic idea. Really,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Or the other thing, if you haven't got the disposable income, is actually just loading up a rucksack to a comfortable weight, but a little bit of weight and putting that on instead, because people don't always want to be spending the money. There's quite a few exercise related questions from the same person in the questions. Do you want to go through those and consolidate them down into just one answer, Sarah?
Yeah, so we're
Um,
talking about sort of how important is steps in exercising. That's relating more towards cardiovascular exercise. Like I said, I think getting a mix of both is good. And for some people, having a benchmark of that 10,000 steps a day is a motivating point and just a good benchmark for where they want to get to every day. So is it important? If it's important for you, then it's important, but it's not something that sort of everyone is going to want to do. I quite like measuring my steps in a day. Again, it's just that accountability. I know I've done that amount of movement. So yeah, good for some people. And also with all the wearables, it's very easy to track. Is it important to go progressive overload when doing resistance training? If you want to be building muscle, then yeah, sort of building up and doing the progressive overload is going to help to increase that muscle mass sort of on an ongoing basis. And to a degree, maintain the muscle mass. So yes, if you want to keep building, then I would say that's a good sort of way of doing it.
Yeah. There's a really interesting question on hyperhidrosis, and I've done some recent research on that, so I'll pick up on that in a minute. Somebody's asking about the protein required for body weight per day depend on age. It is weight orientated. The question around age is interesting. I read a really interesting paper recently that increasing your protein perhaps to that 1 gram per day up to 1.2 grams per day, as long as you're in a healthy condition and you've got no medical reasons not to, can actually help in terms of, obviously we know sarcoidosis, which is what you're mentioning here, which is the breakdown of muscle in old age, is a factor that we want to be mitigating against. But also there was some really interesting research that eating that amount of protein a day could help to improve your production of one of the key antioxidants called glutathione, and that is a really helpful antioxidant to boost as we get older because we naturally produce less. Sorry, that's very technical, but I found it really interesting. So I think overall it's a really good thing. Um, yeah, so the hyperhidrosis question, interestingly, balancing your insulin sensitivity is a really key element of that. And there are all sorts of genetic profiles that might mean that you're at greater risk of hyperhidrosis. For anyone who doesn't know what hyperhidrosis is, and that's probably a lot of people because it's not a very commonly used term, it's excessive sweating to the point where you can actually have a lot of sweat running off different body parts, depending on where you are particularly affected by that. So I have found with working with one person that actually really balancing their blood sugars, helping them to lose weight was a really important step in helping to manage that. So being here, following the core meal plan will be good positive steps in that direction. So I hope that helps. Somebody is saying they prefer to eat early evening, but is it really true that unless you eat more in the morning and earlier in the day, your metabolism slows? So is it then this person who's asking this question, are you only eating, you only eat early evening? So you only eat once a day in the early evening. So you're just doing a once a day. Can you just confirm that somewhere back on the chat? If you want to be anonymous, come back to the Q&A and then we'll pick that up.
I
Um,
think I think generally there's a lot about time of eating, what you should eat, when you should eat. But I think it generally is more about eating windows and trying to make sure that you've got, if you can, eat within a 10 to 12 hour eating window in terms of your metabolism. It gives your gut time to rest overnight. And it tends to mean that if you're restricting the number of hours you're eating in, that you're going to be taking in generally less energy over the course of the day. In terms of the window, I think generally speaking, it is better if you can eat earlier in the evening. I'm not sure where the evidence lies. You may be able to correct me, Ruth, about the time that you should start in the morning. But certainly the later that you eat in the evening, particularly if it's after 9 o'clock, then that can actually adversely affect your metabolism.
yeah, so really, I think it's a much more individualized answer actually than just one size fits all. Some people do incredibly well with just eating once a day. Eating early in the evening would be fine. A 3 hour gap before you go to bed when you finish your meal would be recommended. So all of those things need to be considered as well. But I think also mixing it up is really important because if we're consistently just only ever having one meal a day, it may be that our metabolism will slow down. So it may be worth just mixing it up and giving a bit more variety in there. It depends how you're getting on with your weight loss journey, really. If you're finding that you're losing weight and it's working well for you and your energy is sustained and you feel good when you wake up in the morning, they're all indications that this is working for you. If there are any hiccups with any of those, then it's worth just mixing it up and trying adding in maybe a second meal earlier in the morning. I hope that helps. It is really, it's about finding what is right for you, I would say.
Someone asking a slightly more specific question about a medical condition. They've got an underactive thyroid and have been prescribed medication that's helped, but they're asking for additional advice about that condition and managing weight loss.
Mm.
Um, in terms of being prescribed that medication, you should get to a sort of therapeutic level whereby your thyroid is, or whereby you've got enough of the active thyroid hormone that you're within a treated range, provided you stay within that range. Um, I would just say that following sort of a healthy, balanced whole foods diet, and then focusing on all the other things that we talk about in these webinars, the sleep, the stress, the exercise, the hydration, are all sort of the things that I would be focusing on, just to maintain and sort of to lose that weight.
Somebody's saying that they find that drinking warm fluids helps to reduce their appetite. Is that psychological or is there science behind it? I haven't read anything to help us understand the science behind that. I'll go and have a dive if I have an opportunity this week and look. Have you got any ideas, Sarah? I suppose it
Um,
might warm up your body temperature, so that might boost your metabolism slightly. But
I'm
I
not
think
too
from an
sure.
appetite point of view, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody is mentioning that they are becoming a little bit breathless at exercise. They're missing some of the exercise. That sounds like I would really recommend to direct you back to your GP.
Yeah.
That really is, it sounds quite concerning for you. So thank you for telling us about that. But from a safety perspective, I would say absolutely go and see your GP and explain what's going on to you there, and maybe really go with some real clear evidence of what's happening when and how long you can exercise for before you become breathless. I'm
Yeah.
really sorry to hear you're experiencing that.
Yeah, I would endorse that. Please go and see your GP as soon as you can, because it sounds like it needs looking into a little bit more.
Okay, so Joe, I can see that you've calculated the BMR calculated and realize you've been eating too many calories a day. Can you just also check that you've calculated for your activity before you come to that conclusion? Obviously, that's your baseline for just lying in bed and doing nothing. You need to then add in the activity level to know what your sort of baseline is, to really know where you're at. So, um,
Sorry, I've lost my question and answers. So an interesting one from Carrie. Are protein shakes recommended? Ruth, I'd say you're a good one for this with your nutrition background.
It's a
I have my
really, really interesting question, and I think the jury is 100% out. Obviously, we're living in a world where manufacturers are producing protein shakes as a almost as a convenience food for many people. And I think if you're eating protein but really struggling to just nudge it to the level you need for whatever reason, they can help a little bit to achieve your protein requirements. From an insulin sensitivity perspective, the jury is out, and I think the recent research is suggesting they don't have such a significant impact on insulin sensitivity, and that probably is because they're an ultra processed food. They have all of the sort of building blocks of proteins. They have all of the amino acids, but they don't have the other aspects that food has, like fiber, which is built in, as part of a food source. So it's really interesting, isn't it? So I would say do less of the protein replacements and do more of the real food if you can.
I think to add in to feed your gut microbiome, having more of the whole foods, more of the sort of real food proteins rather than the protein shakes is going to be sort of more benefit to you.
Okay, great. Thanks for confirming that, Jay. So it really is worth just going in and just having a look at those calories every now and then. We don't like overly recommend getting stuck on calorie counting. Every now and then it's worth checking in and seeing where you're at and where you need to be. And then just following that sort of core eating plan can really help. Um, let's see how you go. There's a few comments from earlier. People commenting that they're emotional eaters. So that is one of the things that prevents them from moving forward. Do come along to the psychology webinar, which is happening. I think that was the next one on the 10th. That's next week. If you can, that would be great. If somebody is saying they've got long COVID,
For you.
um, So somebody is mentioning, sorry, Roxanne, you said you have long COVID, so obviously movement and exercise is much more challenging for you. Don't forget, you are in recovery from long COVID. So even just going outside and getting some sunlight and filling your airs with lung and your lungs with air, opposite with your airs with lung, your lungs with
Been talking for a
air
long time now.
would be a really great step. And this is generic information. So if you are really recovering from an illness or a physical, something that's stepping you back, this is important information. Focus on the food aspect for now, because I think that's a really helpful element to be focused on. And thank you, Adna. You've just shared another poll for us. So thank you. That is great. Yeah, brilliant. We're really interested to hear from you. And don't forget, we have got our lovely podcast to share with you as well. So,
We run through a few more of the comments while people are filling in the
yeah,
poll. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I think there's Karen's mentioned that it's sticking with a routine is the hardest thing for her. Um, I think that is tricky. Being sort of committed and dedicated is very, very tough. But I think if you can make things a habit, by setting reminders, by maybe having someone that you're doing the activity, the exercise with, trying to just get something into your sort of everyday routine, that's probably the best way to do it. But I think if you don't naturally enjoy kind of being active or exercising, it is hard. But it's just thinking sort of about the benefits and trying to find a why to get yourself to do it.
So somebody has written a message in the questions. There's a few more popping in there now, goodness me. So somebody is saying they've got plantar fasciitis and asking about um, exercise with intermittent plantar fasciitis. It may be that something that you're doing is triggering your plantar fasciitis, or it may be that a food may be part of that picture. So maybe keep a diary and just see if you can find any triggering events. You may have already done that. So obviously, if that's not something you've done, it's worth it. I was reading on a nutrition forum the other day that somebody had had really positive outcomes with plantar fasciitis by doing yoga. So that might be something worth considering.
Actually,
Yeah,
a website called patient.co.uk. You may well be doing the stretches that are recommended on there, but that might be worth having a look at as an extra.
brilliant. Okay, thank you. Um, Question about weight loss medication and weight loss. Yo-yo dieting into first 2 weeks seems like waiting for days to increase. Uh, what we know about the weight loss medications, and this may be something that you know too, so I'm not trying to tell you anything. I just want to get the baseline in there. When you're taking a weight loss medication, you also need to be doing the core eating plan. You need to be really looking at what you're eating, how much you're eating, whether you're getting enough protein, whether you're moving your body enough, how your sleep is, how your stress is, all of those factors, whether you're an emotional eater, whether you're fridge raiding. We know that all of those factors are really important to consider as well. We know that in the first couple of weeks or even over the long haul, you can have variation in your weight from one day to another. And that isn't necessarily true weight gain or true weight loss. It can be just how your body is naturally altering from one day to the next. Or it could be something that you've eaten or something that you've done, or some additional stress has caused some inflammation for you for whatever reason, which would show as an increase on the scales. So there are many factors to consider. And I think one of the things we're really keen for you to do is, yes, absolutely track your weight loss, but also track your body weight measurements, track your energy, track your quality of sleep, track track your zest for life when you wake up in the morning, because all of those things are as important. I know we become so fixated on the scales that we think that's the only thing that we need to keep an eye on, but actually all the other things are really important too, aren't they, Sarah?
Yeah, and I'd just say with the weight loss medication, it is a longer term approach. People do see results early on, but it tends to be that people do are on it for longer to get the results. It's just so that they can implement all the diet and lifestyle changes that are necessary for that long-term weight loss. It sounds like you've only been on it for a couple of weeks. I would take a slightly more long-term approach when you're thinking about the medicine you're taking.
Okay. Somebody's asking again about the eating later in the day. Um, Again, it's really worth just mixing it up. I think if you're stacking all of your calories in at the end of the day, it is worth just seeing what happens if you move things around. I used to be a great believer for myself personally that I did really well on intermittent fasting, and I do. I feel really good on intermittent fasting, but from a weight management perspective, I do much better if I eat three smaller meals a day. Who knew? So again, and I spend my life looking at all of this information so we can all learn, we can all change, and it can all make a difference. So, good luck. And there is no absolute definitive answer. It is about finding what is right for you. Um, and that can be quite tricky. It takes a little while to figure it out. So we've got one last poll that we'll just launch in the last couple of minutes while we're here. Do have a look if you care to. And any last comments or questions from anyone at all?
I don't think there's anything
Thanks,
else.
Anna. That's great. And thank you to Adna for being here and sharing all of the resources. And have a great week, everyone. We've come to the end of the webinar. We will be back next week. Look after yourselves. Have a great week. And Sarah, really
For
great to
joining
see
us.
you.
Really great to see you too, Ruth. And thanks so much for your help, Adna.
Take care, everyone.